back to another installment of Black Issues. I'm so honored. I'm so excited to have none other than, clap your hands, get out your tambourine, Harold Miller, the executive director of the Racial Justice Commission of NYC, a division of the mayor's office. I'm Kanene Ayo Holder. I'm an activist. I'm an educator. I'm a three-time National Endowment for the Humanities award-winning artist and everything in between to end racism. That's my whole goal, to laugh while you learn how to end racism and use humor to heal the racial divide. And I thought, okay, 2 years after George Floyd, protests in the streets, Black Lives Matter yellow. So you see, shout out to Mr. Rogers, that's my sweater, and also shout out to Black Lives Matter yellow, right? We had all of these plazas painted Black Lives Matter. Statues were toppled. 2 years later, what does that mean, right? Whether we vote or not, our taxes are funding, right, systemic and institutional racism. So New York City is the first in the nation to actually have a racial justice commission to look through the lens of how racially insensitive, how racially damaging this policy, this procedure, this law, this new building, this new highway, shout out to Robert Moses, Cross Bronx Expressway. Like, this is the first city in the nation that has come up with an entire new division and branch of the government. So maybe now when we're paying our taxes, it's not taxation without representation, but instead it's taxation with scrutinization. There you go.
I
Well,
love that.
scrutinize. So with that, Harold, take it away. So for all of you who are watching on the live stream and YouTube, thank you all so much. Please share the link. Please share the link. For all of you watching on Facebook, share the link. For all you on Instagram, Love You Black, and Clubhouse. So with that, let's get started with you. Okay. When did you first realize that racism is an issue?
Uh, uh, well, first, thank you for having me on, and greatly appreciate this platform to talk about the New York City Racial Justice Commission. And just a little bit about myself. I am a community organizer by trade. I came up through New York Acorn, which was a organization that fought for low and moderate income families. And I started as a community organizer. And so fighting racism is not a new thing for me.
Yes.
And so I've been doing this for almost 20 years in various capacities. And so when this opportunity came around to be a part of the New York City Racial Justice Commission, I first served as deputy executive director, leading our outreach and engagement. And so it was like a dream job to me, to be honest, to have the ability to work in government to fight to end racism. As like that's it doesn't get better than that for me. And so has been an honor to serve as executive director of a charter commission. I would never thought I'd lead a charter revision commission. It sounds really dull and boring, but when you're fighting against racism and fighting for equity, it actually was fulfilling and enjoyable and like exciting every day since I joined August of last year.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, so thank you so much for that. Acorn, was Acorn in the fight for minimum wage, for being $15 an hour as well? That was some of the.
Yeah, so actually I have a personal connection to that fight around the fight for 15, as we called it. It actually happened a little after Acorn disbanded, and a new organization at the time called New York Communities for Change, now in its 12th year, was working on the ground to organize low wage workers. I helped organize fast food workers. I had colleagues who was organizing car wash workers, and we were pushing for increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Mind you, a lot of these folks who work in these low wage jobs are of color, particularly Black, immigrant, New Yorkers. They are the ones who are, doing these backbreaking jobs, in the fast food world. you work in fast food when you have a burn mark, and so like this scars run deep, and it kind of reminds me of like our ancestors who have scars to show the labor that they had, and though that was free labor, low wage rate labor is not that much better when people can't live with dignity. And so, that was an honor to be a part of that fight and to help lead one of the first strikes in the nation's history with fast food workers. And, from that fight evolved this movement for $15 minimum wage that we now enjoy here in New York.
Okay, I thank you so much for that. I was also part of the Occupy movement, so
Yeah.
we were also pushing the fight for
Yeah.
15 years ago. So I'm very familiar with Acorn. And I have a question. Okay, so are you're trying to say that you're trying to mess up children who just want to go to Wendy's, who just want to go to McDonald's? Like, did you ever thought that you would grow up to be that type of a person? Like, when did you start this process and this path and this journey again to realize that being Black, right, is an issue, right? So we got the bio, right? We got what you do right now. Amazing. I was so excited to meet you. I was like, yes, and again, like, who knew that we would clean up so nicely? You know what I'm saying? All the things I'm sure we've done back in the day, you know what I'm saying, for us to go all formal and government and people take us seriously now, right? So, but I can share my, like, when I realized that racism and being Blackness was an issue, but I just want to hear from somebody's laughing at my I know. I use humor to heal the racial divide. But I want to know from you, like, when is your first, because again, you're Guyanese GT massive, right? So
Yes.
okay, right? So you're first generation, right? And so am I. I'm half Jamaican and half Trinidadian. But oh ho. So when
Yeah.
when did you realize, like, oh, Blackness is an issue? Were you born here? Were you born in GT? What's your story?
So I was
Your
I was
black
born I
your
was
Black story.
Sure. I was born in Brooklyn.
Hey.
Yeah, my mother technically was born in England, and she had me at a pretty young age, and so I was actually raised by my grandparents who are Guyanese, and so I always say that though yes, I grew up in Brooklyn, but I was raised in Guyana. So once I was in the
What part
house,
of Brooklyn?
East Flatbush, 90s.
Okay, so we didn't go to the same school. Okay, fine.
Well, we might have. What school you went to?
I went to BS 139, so I was in Flatbush proper.
Oh,
So
Flatbush. Okay, no.
Erasmus was my zone school. What was your zone
Yeah.
school?
PS
Tilden?
219, Tilden. Yeah, but
Boom.
I went to Boys and Girls. Shout out
Oh
to the
wow.
high. Shout out to the high. Yes.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
We go Black. Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah.
continue. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're
Arthur
running
Somers
around.
Junior High School. So
You're what?
I went to Arthur Somers Junior High School, IS 252. So that's
Okay,
my junior high school. So that's
shout out. Okay.
yeah.
So you're
Yes.
running around middle school, you're running around elementary school,
Mm,
kindergarten.
mm,
When did you realize in this beautiful, come to America, the land of the free and the home of the brave?
yeah.
When did you realize, racism is an issue? Can you think about
Wow,
when that happened?
yeah. I actually do. I know it clearly.
Oh,
I was 13 years old. And I always knew racism exists. I'm always kind of been aware, but like where it felt it. So I played Little League Baseball when I was a kid. And in those days, played out in Canarsie, and Canarsie was still a predominantly Italian community. They pretty much left soon after, a few years after that. So this is the early to mid 90s we're talking about. And those kids, the things they used to say were so racist.
mm-hmm.
Calling us, referring to black people as the N word, uh, you know, call each other that, which was like always found weird. I had to interrupt two white boys calling each other. Said, no, you're not. And I like, wait, I'm the only here. And so, yeah, I need to cut it out. I was one of two black kids on the baseball team in those few years I played in that league, and so experiencing that was interesting, because you kind of thought like racism was something back in the 60s and before then, but you don't realize how those things are not that long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and their parents were probably like just jerks of a racist, and they learned it from them, and God knows, these guys are in their 40s now, probably teaching it to their kids. And so that's partly motivated me to, like, speak out, speak up, fight, knowing that the world is not a fair place, because beyond just being, hearing our people called by in a degrading term, I also understood that, like, there are policies, there are things that
Mm,
decisions
mm,
that are made because those 12-year-old boys think it was okay. They kind of embedded into their work, whether they became cops or bankers or, real estate agents. And so that is something that, like, carried me, through, because knowing that, this world was not, built on fairness for Black people.
mhm, mhm. I thank you so much for that. And your vulnerability, your transparency. With Black issues, I also like to be trauma informed and empathetic, right? So,
Mhm.
I never wanted to be blagedy, just like
Right.
just Black tragedy, just cue up the violins all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, always be mindful, take care of yourself when you do have to dig deeper and go Black into a time when you felt in some way, shape, or form shamed, shunned, or inferior for being who you actually are. And what I put in the comments as well is, it's not just, with racism isn't just emotional, it is economic.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I say with Black issues. I have mugs about it just to remind people that work. and um, and it's not just the name calling, right? It's also the policy, because the policy
Yeah.
equals the power.
Yep.
So when there's a meme where there's a little child that goes, "That's racist, that's racist," right? And it's like, well, what does racism even mean, right? So you are the executive director of the Racial Justice Commission. So what is your definition, or what is the guiding principle around the notion of racism through through this commission that you then want to share with people? Like, what is the point? What is the purpose?
Great question. It's
Racism. What
yeah,
has that?
racism, defined as, the ability to, inhibits one's ability for access, opportunity, and power, based on their, color of their skin. And we suffer through that immensely, because you have there's so many ways that is inflicted upon us on a daily basis. A lot of times we don't even know about it. We don't even realize it. We take certain things for granted, even though we're being the ones, inflicted upon. And so, uh, that racism that exists is not that we're not fighting someone over because they said a certain word, or they wear a T-shirt that says "White Lives Matter." No, we're actually addressing, like, root causes, of
Yes.
structural racism,
Mm-hmm.
that, looks at, what are the policies that fuel, the lack of opportunity for Black people and other people of color. What are the structures that inhibits folks from, having access and opportunity and power. Those are the things that we focus on and address. Not to say there's not a place to, call out those who, wear certain T-shirts or say certain phrases.
We're not doing Kanye tonight. We are not doing Kanye tonight.
I didn't want to say his name, or Candace Owens, or, yeah, I don't want you to melt. I don't want you to melt.
Hold
So,
on, hold on. And just for that, I'm gonna remind people, subscribe to the Black Issues YouTube channel. Lord have mercy, because if these other people going viral doing all kinds of chicanery, you know what I'm saying,
mhm.
dredging up Black issues, might as well support Black issues. And then we'll also I'll also put it in the chat, the website for the Racial Justice Commission. But yes, continue. Just
Yeah,
just we're not doing Candace and we're not doing Kanye tonight.
exactly. So,
Tap out.
but yeah, but what we do need to address is that those we don't see and don't hear from, and we have laws on our books that have been on the books for hundreds of years. And so when these laws were written,
Mm,
neither you or I or folks who look like us were in the room,
mm.
making these decisions, making these laws. And so that's what we're working to address is, how do we actually break the structures of racism in city government? And uh, what we're doing here for this election is having these ballot proposals that kind of takes you know takes this head on to start to uproot or dismantle this monster of structural racism.
Oh, you didn't use the M word. Oh, not the M word, not monster. Oh, I love it. I love it. So let's get into some of these policies, right? So again, with Black issues, and we're Black, right? I talk about a lot of blurgent, Black and urgent issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that even mean, right? Well, there's issues that are urgent, right? But then for some reason, when you mix Blackness with the urgency, somehow it's not as quick for a solution, right?
Yeah.
The solution is always fleeting, right? And let's see here. You said, laws that were written when we weren't in the room. This has been going on for 400 years,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Before 1619, to be honest with you,
Right.
right? So what you're saying here is that red, 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 yellow, 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 green, 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 green. So you're way over here. Ooh, finger, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're way over here. Now, mind you,
Mm-hmm.
all of this is green before Racial Justice Commission. Do you realize this?
Yeah.
This is circulated on the internet. The art's not mine. The logo is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there are people who believe that, things are pretty good for the past 20 years, Obama and what happens, right?
Oh yeah.
So why if things are green, why do we need a commission?
Well, because I will argue things are actually not green.
Oh,
Things are,
green, green screen.
yeah,
Oh,
things. Let's take a step back for a second.
a step black, a step
A
black.
step black, a step black. Um, my grandmother, her great grandmother, she got to meet who was actually enslaved. Just think about that for a second. Like, so we're not that far removed from um our people actually being in bondage. We may think that, but in the grand scheme of things, of course, of human history, it's
Yeah.
actually a very really short period of time, a time where I
Yep.
can literally trace my grandmother telling me a story about how she met her great grandmother. you know um that is you know that is like, to me, really like close.
Hmm.
And then
I'm sorry to cut you off, but
sure.
just to look at this really quickly,
Hmm.
America has been in bondage, right? Has been in the business of bondage longer than it's been in the business of freedom.
Absolutely.
Just look at
Yeah.
the first,
Yeah.
right? Continue. I
Yeah.
just needed to.
No, and I think that helps set the context of what this is really about. And so when you now saying, okay, well, things are great, we had a black president, had this, well, on the surface, yeah, great. I have a picture of Obama in my house. You know how people have pictures of Jesus and Martin Luther King. I actually have a
JFK,
picture of Obama. Hmm?
JFK, maybe.
Yeah, JFK for some folks. I don't understand that part, but I guess that's a different conversation.
Mm,
Um, but I put it up because I want my two boys to know, like, yeah, you could be president. It's real, it's attainable, but at the same time, there's inequities that still exist. Like, Obama becoming president did not change structural racism. It did not change the fact that we have laws on the books that send people for low levels of crack and versus high levels of cocaine for longer sentences. That is a you know that's a structural issue. Structural issue when you have resources not equally distributed to public schools around this country,
issue.
or and particularly in this issue in this city,
Mm-hmm.
where depending on your zip code, the amount of resources you get for your school changes. uh, so we are living with
So many
like
issues.
yeah, yeah, housing. Our chair Jennifer Jones Austin always
Yes.
highlights the fact that like after the end of World War II, you had soldiers coming back receiving a GI Bill so they could go to college and go or purchase a home. Problem is they wasn't selling us homes, and their schools were discriminate from us attending. And so like what can we do there? And so you had these legacies of oppression that still we're feeling it today, because the reason why our communities are shaped the way they are because decisions that were made 70, 75 years ago. Our school systems are built on structures that were built 100 and something years ago. And so if we are not actually looking at what these root causes are and working with the structures in place to start to change it, you can interchange any black president, Latino president, don't matter. We still gonna have systemic racism and prevalent in our society.
I love it. I love it. I adore that. I appreciate it. The chat is popping. We even have a question about affirmative action, Supreme Court. We're gonna get into all of these issues, right? Rent is too damn high issues,
Hmm.
right? And Harold, you are speaking right now as a citizen of the city of New York, or are you speaking on behalf of the Racial Justice Commission? Just to make sure, because again, with Black issues, right? Like to what degree can we, as Black people, speak truth to power and not incur repercussions for that? If you're too Black, right? If you're too woke, if you're too something, it's like, oh, tomorrow, you know, they cut the cord to your job, your voice, your platform. So just to make that clear as a disclaimer, as people continue to watch and ask questions and share this video,
Yeah.
and views keep going up and up and up, just to let people know how are you
Yeah,
seeing this
that's
opportunity?
I am here in my capacity as the executive director for the Racial Justice Commission, but I'm not afraid to speak truth to power.
Okay,
I never have, I try, never will. To be afraid of that. You know.
and we're
Uh,
Black. Okay, great. And so you're delineating some of the policies. Shout out to Robert Moses again.
hmm.
The education, the education issues in terms of the whitewashed curriculum. I mean, I can say really quickly. For me, mind you, I am forever 21. Just in case anybody was going to ask that question. I recall in 1989, I was in the fourth grade when record scratch, the African burial ground was discovered while they were trying to build a building. And all of a sudden, like all of our teachers who taught us this whole narrative of slavery was in the South was bad, and Harriet Tubman freed the slaves up north to freedom. You know, we were all sitting here like, how do you, what I'm saying? Like, how do you,
Yeah.
what I'm saying? We were carrying the one, but we weren't able to carry
Right. Right.
that narrative. Like, and then when I became a history teacher, I remember 2008. I was a history teacher at Harlem Children's Zone, and it was a year that Obama was running for president,
Hmm.
and the curriculum hadn't changed.
Wow.
There was well, it changed a little bit. It was two tiny little paragraphs about blah blah blah. Stuyvesant. He was the mayor, and he, something about slavery. But for the most part, it was still very like, it was just like a little footnote, like, well, if we're obligated to do something better than nothing, here you go. Here's
Mm.
literally two paragraphs from 1989 to 2008,
Wow.
right? So what does that mean in terms of people's perception of reality,
Yeah.
right? In terms of their then ability to critically navigate what are actual issues, and we're just so quick to just say, oh, everything's green, everything's fine.
Right.
Well, this is why, because if you're not told the truth, you're gonna over index positivity.
Hmm.
You're gonna under index the issues, and you're definitely not going to synergize all of the issues, the housing issues, the education issues, the healthcare issues, the fight for minimum wage.
Right.
You're not gonna do that, because it'd be too much of a cognitive dissonance shock. So it's just way easier to watch football, Black Friday,
Hmm.
new phones coming out,
Yep.
new Call of Duties coming out, and just live your life, than it is to sit there and say, what is this racial justice thing? What is
Yeah.
this commission thing? So just because we still have a critical mass of people that are here, I want you to get, let's see here. I want you to get Blurging real quick. Please let people know what they can do to support this critical time during an election in New York City. You're the executive director of the Racial Justice Commission. What do you need people? What do you need people to
To
do?
do.
What do you need
Yes.
people to know? And then we can continue to go on about the issues, and I can play my tambourine. It could just go,
Yeah.
but
Well, absolutely. So first things first, when you go vote, first of all, go vote. Voting is always key to our freedom.
yeah.
That's why they didn't give us the right to vote. That's why they fought, for us not to vote. That's why they discouraging us to vote now. They say, well, it doesn't matter. Everyone's terrible. It's by design. Anyway,
Mm,
so when you do go vote, flip that ballot. And when you flip the ballot, you're gonna see four questions. If you're in the five boroughs, you'll see four questions. First question is around Environmental Bond Act. Take a
let's
read at
slow
it.
hold on one second, Harold. Let's
Mhm.
just slow this down. Just
Sure.
not your fault, but just
Yeah.
for because there's people watching from all over the country, all over the world. So before we get very granular and acute as to like what
Yeah.
this ballot is, please
Hmm.
explain to them the historic, unprecedented nature of what is transpiring on the black of that ballot. Start there.
So on the black of that ballot, for the first time ever, we're gonna have three questions that squarely address racial equity, putting racial equity in focus of government. That has not been done before in this country. And so New Yorkers will have an opportunity to vote on three ballot questions that will determine the direction of racial equity in the city
For how long?
forever, until you go back and change the charter, which is very hard to do.
Aha.
So it's for perpetuity.
And so this would actually change the charter of New York City.
Yes.
Okay. And when I went to the town hall, literally at town hall,
Hmm.
right,
Hmm.
just a few days ago, you equated it to the preamble to the Constitution, and how the charter it's a similar word. It's the same
Yeah.
principle in terms of like the charter of New York City is basically the Constitution of New York City.
Yes.
The Racial Justice Commission would have a preamble. So what would the preamble be for the New York City Constitution or the New York City Charter?
Well, so the preamble sets our values. It gives us those guiding principles. So any successful organization has a mission statement, has a statement of values to describe who they are and what they're about. New York City, as mighty as we've been for the last 500 years, we have not had a preamble to describe who we are, and so we're taking this opportunity to set the tone of what the city should be. And so it talks about a city that is equitable for all New Yorkers, a city that is about making sure housing is attainable for everyone, quality education for all New Yorkers, healthcare that everyone have access to, a clean environment, space, safety, all those things that we see that New
All
York
the
can be, and live with dignity. And I think that's the key thing. That's the theme of when we equate equity. Let's equate equity with dignity,
mm-hmm,
because ultimately, we don't necessarily need to be friends with the other side of, but we just want to live with dignity, and that's what's been holding us back. Is the fact that there's policies that prevented us from living with true dignity. And so the first question talks about a city which aspires that all New Yorkers have equity, has access to power, opportunity, and access as well, and being able to live with real dignity. And so
okay.
that's the first question, statement
And
about it.
so,
Also acknowledges the past harms of,
okay.
because in order for us to move forward, we have to acknowledge that this land was taken from the Lenape, that Africans were brought into the city to toil the land, that immigrants over the generations have faced discrimination, marginalization. In order for us to actually begin to address equity, we have to acknowledge the past harms.
Wow. And so, when we think about the preamble, right? Well, and what and so again, for me, I'm a teacher, so I always think like main idea, supporting details. Again, I used to be a teacher. Only teachers would do things like this, right? Main idea, supporting details, right? So the main idea would be racial equity and dignity, right? Because you can have the equity, right? So like for example, housing lottery, right?
Hmm.
There used to be buildings, the 80-20 building, 80% is, oh my God, we make so much money. And then 20% was like lower income. And then, oh, well, this building with all these amenities, well, you can't access these amenities and you have to go through the poor door.
All right.
Right. So that would be one of those issues where it's like the dignity part, right? So all of that is funneled up into this preamble, correct? Like
Yes.
all of these different issues, the lead paint, the lead,
Yes.
the lead of the water, the asthma, right? The
Yes.
environmental racism, right? Like
Yep.
why are all the depots, in Harlem and the Bronx,
Right.
um, all of that, the Superfund sites, like all of that, um, is very flowery language in this new preamble that you all are hoping gets passed, correct?
Well, we want New Yorkers to consider, the commission, that put this together, believe that this was the right direction to help set a tone for the city. So we're not telling you how to vote, but we are saying that, you need to consider, its impact and the potential impact on the city moving forward.
Yes. Yeah, so right, because again, as I mean, and again, I guess for me, I as well, I guess will not say what to do, but I know that you are legally bound to, uh,
Be
as I would like to say,
neutral.
be neutral and amplifying the issues,
Yeah.
right? But we can't really accelerate the solution and tell you what you need, how you need to vote. But wink, wink, in terms of that, right? So the preamble would have some language there that would that hopefully would be held accountable, correct? Like this is not
Yes.
just a free form writing exercise, right? Like right, this is
No.
actually like this is, and so would money be attached to this, would it just be more planning sessions for the sake of planning sessions? Would this actually mean that it is there teeth in this? Would it actually would government officials be held accountable?
Well, yeah, and they'll be held accountable by us, because now we have a unified vision of what our city should look like. And so, if you have leaders, city leaders, making decisions that don't reflect what the preamble is set out to be,
Uh-huh.
that's when we need to hold those officials accountable, because we said no, we agreed that we want, you know, clean air. We want quality schools. So decisions moving forward needs to have in mind that this is the direction as a city we want to move into. Will that happen in every single case? No, but we have to continue to pay attention. Part of the reason why I do this, I have an aggressive campaign to educate folks about the ballot measures, because it's really about the day after. Assuming these things do get passed,
Yes.
the electorate need to know exactly what we signed up for. And so when they try not to uphold those values, we like no, 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 because you said this is the type of city we are. And so we need an informed public to hold our officials accountable. But yes, this is really meant to guide government moving forward. So yeah, no one can actually sue to say, well, the government didn't do this, but we can hold people to a standard now. Before our standards didn't really exist, and so it was up to individuals. But now we have a guiding principle that we will unify under if this was to pass.
And it's really exciting, right? Like
Hmm.
again, like I was a part of the Occupy movement, so this is this notion of like utopia that we can actually do this, right? And then there's the actual reality, right, of bureaucracy, of personalities, of nepotism, of
Yep.
all these other money. We didn't even talk
Hmm.
about that, right? Because Akiba had a my neighbor who's literally next door to me. Hi, Akiba. Akiba,
Love it.
hilarious. She says, until corporate greed is dealt with and the rich are fairly taxed, there's no hope for the rest of us. So let's table that, because I know that that's like a powder keg, but just have that in the back of your mind as you explain the other two ballot measures, so that we can really see, like, okay, and then we'll get to that, right? Because that, I think, is true and slightly
Definitely true.
separate, but also very true.
And actually connected, because you think about, not to go, too far off, but
Mhm.
when who benefits from a perpetual systemic racism, the status quo, and major corporations, so benefit from things being the way they are, because
Yep.
they make money. And so until we start to change laws and policies, yeah, corporations can exploit workers, they can exploit our environment, exploit, having a dumbed down education system so they don't have to pay you fair wages, because they're like, well, you don't have the education background to actually, do this. Uh, all these things are connected, and
Yes.
they're connected, and it's by design. And the dirty little secret is we're breaking the status quo if these things pass. And so yeah, so it is actually relatable, what is happening here to how we actually address corporate greed and exploitation, by major corporations. So the second question, is, we call this the action question, because this is where you form an office of racial equity that will put racial equity in the center of city government. So right now, if there was a decision that need to be made on the city level, and I know some of your folks here, work in government at various points,
Hmm.
uh, there's always a consideration about the budget, right? There's a consideration about the political fallout. There's a consideration perhaps on the environmental impact. Not that often there's actually a consideration of what's the racial impact, or what's the, what it'll do to communities around the city. And so you have an office and you have a structure in place that actually would take into account what is the racial impact of decisions that are made by the city. Connected to that, um, um, this ballot measure will also require city agencies every 2 years to come up with racial equity plans.
Mm.
And so when city agencies have to come up with racial equity plans, we actually ask them to come up with these racial equity plans while they're putting together their budget priorities, for a reason, because we want to make sure that this is not an afterthought. This is in line with their priorities as an agency for the year. And
Hmm.
all agencies, not just the ones that we often talk about, like PD or education. Department of Records have to do it. Sanitation has to do it. Department of Finance. All these agencies that play in the background that you may not, necessarily have like a, have a direct interaction of what, of their systemic racism policies, but they do have it.
They
It
do.
exists. It
The
exists in
hiring,
every agency. Yeah.
the training. So give
Hi-
me 1 second. I'm just, at this point, I'm just sloppy with my social media now. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Clubhouse. Hold on. Clubhouse is popping. Clubhouse gives so much love. I love you all, Black. This is Black Issues. We're in the midst of interviewing the executive director of the Racial Justice Commission in NYC, the only racial justice commission in the entire country. They are tasked with ensuring that any type of policy, any type of money exchange, anything in between, is done from a racial lens. And so I'm so thrilled to have Harold Miller here now with us. And so unfortunately, I can't take any questions on Clubhouse now, but I will bring you all up to ask questions towards the end, because I'm also on YouTube and I pinned the link. Love you all, Black. All right, and we're Black. So at this point, it's a blumpire. It's a media blumpire.
Love it.
Yeah. And so we have the ballot initiative to change the charter. We have the ballot initiative to ensure that the way in which laws are passed, the ways in which budgets are passed, the ways in which
Decisions,
decisions
are
are
made.
made are shifted towards prioritizing a racial. Hold up, wait a minute. Well, how is this going to affect, ABC 1, 2, 3 and XYZ? I adore that. We appreciate that. All of you who are at home, I don't know, shake your imaginary tambourine for that. Great. And so, what is the third ballot initiative?
Well, just to finish on two,
Oh,
the
mhm.
part three of that number two is a commission
There's
on
more.
racial equity, where it's made up of New Yorkers across all five boroughs, different ages, different backgrounds, all, to represent truly what New York City is. And they will hold the city accountable to making sure that racial equity will always be in the forefront. So no matter who the mayor is or what the administration look like, they will exist to always push the racial equity as a priority in decision making in government. So they'll help review plans, help advise the office, be that voice of consciousness for city government. So then you get into the third question, which is true cost of living measure. So right now, we all know New York City is heck of expensive. We, no matter what neighborhood, what your income level, we all feel it. However,
Hold on.
we don't actually.
The
Mhm.
rent is too damn high.
Yes,
Yes,
rent
that
is too
that was
damn high,
you
and
remember when
milk is too.
he
Yeah,
ran
yeah,
for
Jimmy McMillan.
that
Yeah,
was his
a
whole
legend.
platform.
Yeah, and it resonated because I think that's something we all can relate to. We, no one thinks rent are cheap in this city unless you've been here for 50 years and haven't moved your apartment, which is rare and rare, unfortunately. But we actually don't know what's that real cost to live here in New York City is right this minute. And so this cost of living measure will be done annually and will factor in housing, food, childcare, transportation, toiletries, all those things that we need to live with dignity. Remember that word, dignity. And so,
Dignity.
it comes back to that, and so that will help inform policymakers to make decisions. Oh, decisions. Like question two, about how to actually make sure more and more New Yorkers can live with dignity. And so, though these questions are separate, they tie into each other because we aspire to be a city where you can live with equity and have real dignity and be able to afford and live here without barriers unnecessarily. The second question talks about what actions we can take. Every agency can play a part to help shape how they can be less racist, more equitable, and break down systemic barriers that their agencies uphold. And the third question is our accountability question of how do you actually measure rates of success. And so one of the ways you measure it is by seeing where people are measure up against a true cost of living measure. Obviously, when we do it the first time, which will be probably in 2024, if this was to pass, we will see a great disparity between white New Yorkers and black New Yorkers. Unfortunately. However, the question is from there is like, what will the city do to close that gap and to make sure that when you measure it in 2032, that gap is non-existent. And so that's the challenge, and that's what that cost of living measure will do. Challenge us to actually say, okay, we know that we need to put more support, or we need to business differently, making sure our employers are paying living wages. I know a lot of that's controlled by the state, but the city actually has some control with their contracting to businesses, give more opportunity to smaller black owned, other business of color owned businesses to procure work. I one of the things that was interesting, and I don't want to go on tangent, but we when we faced this pandemic, we saw like uh, um, procurements, kind of the typical rules of procurement go out the door. And the city was, working with a lot of different partners, and it helped a lot of businesses carry through during the pandemic. And we're like, why do our school system need to have one contractor to deliver all the food? Can we actually break that up? That's something, you know, if you want to put in a racial equity plan,
Mm-hmm.
that is that's something the DOE can consider. Okay, well, instead of just giving it to one large contractor, we will give half of our contract to black owned other businesses of color, that can, provide food and other, nutrition to kids.
Yep.
That's an
MWE, right?
hmm hmm
Women minority owned businesses.
yeah.
Because I think really quickly, like the way racism works is so insidious. A lot of times you don't even realize it. That like from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed, like how many things that you use on a daily basis are owned by a person of color. Like the
Right.
plastic forks you're using for your lunch, who made those? The bottle cap to your favorite drink, who makes that?
Hmm.
Who makes the ink that's printed on it? Right?
Yeah.
Like more likely than not, the default is for the benefit, unfortunately, of white people. That is what
Yeah.
this entire country was found. It was built on. We're gonna enslave you, okay? We're gonna kill you, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
And we're gonna make this money.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't look as brutal. There's not whips and it does and a pile of buffalo bones,
You're right.
right?
Right.
Matter, right? It doesn't look as brutal, but that's the insidiousness of it.
Yeah.
That it would take a large effort to undo this for it to
Yeah.
actually get to the green
Right.
that we think. This green includes, more likely than not, that these contractors, that our government officials, are predominantly, unfortunately, still white and male, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so this is why, I'm so excited to have you on and for you to continue to explain why what you're doing is, and for those of you who are fans of Black issues, they're going to get so excited. So important because it's important, but when it's Black, it's important, which is a little condescending and a little like, oh, look at you, important, but it is, it
Hmm.
is important, but it's important, it's a joke, but continue.
Well, no, to that point, we are, we are a city that is actually majority of color. There's more people of color than white New Yorkers, and the thing is that a lot of decisions, a lot of dollars still go to, predominantly white businesses, white male businesses, to be quite frank.
Yep.
And that is due to longstanding structures that because their grandfather had business with the city. It just continued and continued from generation to generation, at a time where we couldn't compete, and now we can compete. There are structures in place because, well, you don't make enough to get this. You don't have enough capita. That's the big thing now. They have enough capital. They have enough resources. They can actually, and then if a business is given an opportunity, and unfortunately I face some of this in a couple of areas that I've positions I had in the city. I was fortunate to actually get Black owned business, color owned businesses, to do business with the city, with the different roles I had. But it was very difficult for them because
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't get paid until they produced work, and that means I had to front a lot of capital
Mm-hmm.
in order to do that work, which structurally makes it difficult for businesses of color to actually really compete against those who actually come with large amounts of capital, because historically they inherited from their grandpas.
Right. And I put there in the comments the barriers to entry, right?
Yeah.
That even if you respond to the request for request for
Proposal.
proposal,
Hmm.
right? And you could sit there and you could type it up and it could look really good, but then something like, oh, well, you don't have the money to really present the model
Yeah.
really well, and so there goes that. Or you would have to ship it by this date and this time, and you don't have the access to the factory or the materials or whatever, right? And
Hmm.
so the what would that, something that granular, what would the Racial Justice Commission do in that particular instance?
Well, just to be clear, like if the commission that I sit on, will no longer exist on November 8th. It's just a
Okay.
charter revision commission. But if ballot question 2 passes,
Mm.
you have an office of racial equity, and actually, let me be clear, Mayor Adams has established office of equity already, by executive order. And so what we're doing is working to codify this into the city charter if this was to pass. So this exists already. And what uh, what it would be charged to do is to examine, you know, agency by agency, what can you do to reduce the barriers
Mm-hmm.
that keep opportunity away from people of color. And so, for example, we use the procurement. That is one way an agency can say, okay, well, we have these rules, so maybe we actually don't ask as much capita. Maybe we have bigger bridge loans. So I don't know. There's like many ways they can actually make this work
Mm-hmm.
to help um, businesses that are of color in the city to actually be competitive and actually really have opportunity. But it will take legislative action to motivate some of them. Unfortunately, some of them are performing to increase procurement. They have NWBE goals that's already in place, but it's more than that. You know, it doesn't actually push push agencies to actually look at its rules, its policies, its structures, its cultures, all those things that you know uphold
Mm-hmm.
these practices. NWBE is like an
Mm-hmm.
it's a tool, but it's not an answer necessarily.
It's very small. So I had a quick question, and I'm a huge fan of Tucker Carlson. I like, people were like, "Oh, Tucker because of Kanye." I'm like, "Welcome to the party." I've been watching Tucker for years, okay? Because I have to be astute and fluent in white theories. So with that, um, what is the racial? This is serious now. What is the Racial Justice Commission going to do about the white issues, the fragility that is going to come from not being able to secure a contract as easily anymore, or get money under the table anymore, or well, or be promoted anymore, or get that apartment anymore? Like, what are you gonna do about the white issues?
Well, unfortunately, I think they are misguided in to think that I'm trying to disrupt the comfortable lives. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to disrupt their comfortable white lives, or I'm sorry, not lies, a life.
Mhm.
I said lies. I don't know why I said that. If I
We're trying
Freudian,
to keep this on your air, okay? Like, I don't want
yeah.
anybody shutting down my YouTube. No, thank you. I want to
But
be part of it, and y'all know this.
I ain't trying to get you canceled. um, but what this is really about though is that we are now in a place where we know that there's inequities that exist, and so now it's up to the city. Like, do you actually support having a two-class system or having a multi-class system of, the structures that uphold, barriers and shuts out opportunity and access and power, or if we can move towards a greater equity, we all can make money and have access and all have the opportunity, because we know their studies show from the McKinsey group that
Mm,
if we was to actually focus on equity in a real way, you can grow GDP in this country, and so that means more money for everybody. Because actually, you think about it, why would you think it's business sensible to you know, um, not give everyone fair opportunities, or fill in, actually fulfill the gaps that exist, or the what inequities that exist,
yeah.
because it actually makes smart business sense at the end of the day too. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that, because they're like, oh well, I don't want you to take anything away from me. I don't
Right.
mind you got, but
Right.
but no one's gonna lose anything. We're talking about making sure that we actually address inequities that set up this unfair playing field, dismantle it so we all can move forward, and all get this paper together, and all live a life of dignity together. And,
Okay. So, and I appreciate that. And again, I'm very serious about all this. These are important issues to raise, right? And so I remember growing up. that Clinton had promised a national conversation about racism, which never actually happened, correct? And so, in terms of these ballot measures, right, and we can vote on them in any way, and I think it's clear, great replacement theory, thank you, people are low pining. Um, but what about the actual rollout? How are we going to sell this to people? How are we going to actually have like touch points, like make this tangible and actual and reason? You know what I'm saying? I'm talking
Yeah.
about dudes on dirt bikes that listen to drill music all day. I'm on 125. Like I live on 121st Street. Like how are we going to break it down for dudes on Staten Island? You know what I'm saying? Like Trump supporters. Like how are you going to roll out no, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
right? That like the logo's cute. You know what I'm saying? You clean up well. You know, you got your little shirt on. You know, no tie on. You know what I'm saying? Little swagger. You know what I'm saying? Just chill with it. You know what I'm saying? Just commissioner. You know what I'm saying? Just executive director. You know, whatever. I get that, but how do we make this like real? Because if not, the default is going to be on Twitter and every other platform of social media.
Right.
It's just going to be war. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Bob Marley. Until the
Mhm.
philosophy that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That weights people inferior, you know, it's everywhere is war, right? So I think that that's what's also missing, right? Even
Mhm.
missing with Obama, like he did it, you know, he has his little he flirted, you know, with like talking about racism, with like Beergate, remember with
Yeah.
Henry Louis Gates, you know, Trayvon, that could have been my son. But it never really hit a crescendo until unfortunately George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
So we are all here today, unfortunately, or fortunately, you know, the black tragedy
Yeah.
that is George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
So and that was not a structured conversation about racism. It was a national conversation about racism, but again, it was blurgent, right? And
Yeah.
hold on, it was blurgent, right? And then it
Mhm.
was black to normal, right? We went from to
Right.
not talking about racism again. Don't talk about it. Slavery. Don't. You know, we're black to that, right? So
Yeah.
what is the Racial Justice Commission going to do in terms of like having like speaking engagement? Yeah, I don't know, town halls. You know, food drives where you give people some food and then you give them some food to food for
Mhm.
thought. Like
Mhm.
what are some of those initiatives that we could look forward to? You know, when we're like, yo, I do want this Racial Justice Commission. Like, what are we saying yes to?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, and
Outside of the preamble and some and tracking data, which is really important.
yeah. Well, so the truth is that these things are built into structure, and so you may not see like a policy thing or a thing that's like this program will solve racism. It actually doesn't work that way, and we have to be honest that the work of dismantling racism actually kind of takes a lot of digging into the underground
Mm-hmm.
and pulling and roots out and pulling those weeds out of the roots of those weeds of racism. And so we will
Yeah.
have, if a ballot, 2 passes, my hope, and if I have any say so in the direction it goes in moving forward, um, that we actually will have town halls. We will actually have conversation with the guys who listen to drill. We'll have the conversations with all New Yorkers to talk about what's the direct impact, and that impact varies from issue to issue, and it will take time. I don't, like I said, in presentations, we said we begin to dismantle structural racism in our kind of mission statement as a commission,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that because it's like I don't want anyone to think that we'll solve racism with 3 ballot questions in 2 years.
Right.
That's like that. For anyone to feel any sense that will do it, actually don't get what we're doing here. This is a part of a continuing fight.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to my own narrative, fighting for landlords to turn on heat and hot water, for fast food workers to get paid a decent wage. This is part of a continued fight around equity and fighting against marginalization of people. And so the the work the day after actually has to continue. We have to always come up with new and more creative ways to really get at the structures that uphold racism, and so this is a part of it. But there has to be more done. We have to have a conversation about reconciliation and reparations at some point. You know, because I think that's really when you start to break a lot of the um, break apart a lot of the structures that uphold it, because we actually never acknowledge the fact that racism actually harmed people, and we never actually repair the damage that it caused. And so
Mhm.
until you actually do some of those things, they will still persist to a certain extent, because we were never quite made whole, you know. And that's part of the work ahead, is actually, you know, addressing head honestly about what happened, what's the damage it did,
Mhm.
and what is the repair that needs to be done. The good thing is, if ballot 2 does pass, it gives you some tools in place to actually start to do that work, to you know, what the city can do systemically to address that. So, you know, it's, you know, may not be the straight answer that some of the audience may be having, you know, looking for, but that's the honest answer of like what we need to do as a community moving forward. We still have to hold our officials accountable. We still have to, you know, be, you know, not be polite and be honest and blunt about, and call things out when it's racist. And you know, even down to the things that we take for granted, you know, like alternate side parking, or what, you know, what day trash gets picked up versus what day, or you know what, you know, what roads get built, what developments are being made. We have to look at it from a racial equity lens moving
Yep.
forward. And we have to hold ourselves accountable to that, and then we have to hold government leaders accountable for that. And that's how we actually start to move things forward. You know, we just going to give you some tools, but really the work will have to be all of us collectively.
Yeah, yeah, and you know that word collective, right? That you know, a rising tide raises all boats, right? Ubuntu, I am because we are, right?
Hmm.
This notion that, you know, we're New Yorkers, you know what I'm saying? Like that is like a rallying cry. Like, you know, you could be, you know, you could be a Nets fan, you could be a Knicks fan, you know, you could be a Yankee fan, you could be a, you know, you can do, you know, Jets versus Giants,
Hmm.
but New Yorkers are like, yo, we're New Yorkers. Like
Right.
that does unify all of us. So I'm really interested in leaning into that, like
Sure.
bravado, that rah rah. You know what I'm saying? We from Brooklyn, you know. And, you know, it could be a borough challenge, like, you know, what's the most least racist borough? Let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, which borough's gonna get the most reparations? Let's get out our blackulator. You know what I'm saying? Calculating 400 years of racial oppression. Let's go. You know, like it's just interesting ways to explore how the flip side of ending racism could actually be way more fun, way
Oh
more
yeah.
exciting, way more interesting
Yeah.
than like the terror. Everyone's like, no, no, I, you know, leave me alone, and I'll, you know, I'm fine. I'm fine living in my high rise, and there's homeless people, you know, doing a number two in the gutter. That's fine as long as I still have my high, you know, like that's the level of NIMBY, the level of not in my backyard that we have, right? You know, certain people can rally up and do a press conference, and then poof, there goes the homeless shelter. And then
Hmm.
here in Harlem, it's like the highest concentration of formerly incarcerated and drug addicted individuals in all of New York City
Right.
is between 110th and 128th Street,
Yeah.
between 5th and Lexington Avenue. And I know because I live on 125th Street. I literally am on the phone with my friends, and they're like, "Are you okay?" Because it sounds like an ambulance is literally in my apartment. If I open, you know, where they're open, it's. I'm surprised right now. You know, you don't hear the sirens. What you do hear is the choir. I don't know if you all can hear it faintly, but there's a choir that sings very loudly on Malcolm X and 125th. They just revival it
Yeah.
up, and I guess maybe crime goes down and people don't overdose for a few minutes when they're doing that. I don't know. But these are all of the issues that are literally moment by moment impacting certain people, and there's other people who have no
Yeah.
idea. Like, really? Is that how you live? Is that an issue? Like, they have no idea.
Yeah.
So we literally live in a tale. Shout out to Blasio. We literally do live in a tale of two cities, right? And so then when you're talking about racial justice commission, some people are going to be like, what does that even mean?
Right.
You know, everything's fine, you know, and they don't realize that we live in an apartheid state. Who is
Yeah.
holding your doors? Who is sweeping your floors? And who is packing your organic cucumbers and dill? Who?
Right.
Who?
Mm-hmm.
And so that level of like opening up the aperture, the
Yeah.
awareness,
Yeah.
right? To then really see like, yo, you know what I'm saying? We actually do need to have this commission. Yo, we actually do need to have new policies, new ways of collecting data, new ways of scrutinizing policies. And then, yo, we do need to have some solutions, right? Once we realize all the blagedy, all the pain, right, that
Mm-hmm.
has caused. Well, how about you are also on board with that? Because there's a level of empathy and awareness that has been opened up so that people don't do the gaslight.
Yeah.
Because I think some people gaslight unintentionally because they're just so blind and numb to everything. They're just like, whatever, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know?
Totally.
And I
Totally.
think some other people do it because it's a defense mechanism to keep them in power and
Mm-hmm.
to keep them safe, right? And to keep them happy, right? So all of that you have to navigate on this journey, this path, right? From racial amnesia,
Mm-hmm.
from racial apathy, right?
Yes.
And from racial denial,
Yeah.
right? To get to an informed, empathetic, trauma informed awareness that is also activated, right? With this alchemy of, yo, we New Yorkers, right? To
Mm-hmm.
get
Mm-hmm.
to the other side, which is like, yo, what's really good with all these kids having asthma and learning about these white heroes and you know what I'm saying, and lead in the water, you know, like what's really good with this, and the Legionnaires that keeps breaking out in the Bronx randomly, like,
Yeah. It always happens in certain neighborhoods. Certain neighborhoods.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and you went over all three initiatives. I just wanted to make sure you went over the
I
third one
did.
as well. Okay.
Yes.
We did clear the deck of that, right? So love you all black for all of you who are tuning in on the Clubhouse, for those of you who are tuning in on the YouTube, the Facebooks. I love you all black for that. There are quite a few questions. Adam had one. I was talking about tracking the data, right?
Yes.
Like you know. So what I do with Black issues, I use polling data. I like to poll people's opinions and perceptions of the issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you can't get from point A to point B until you actually really realize where point A is, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that data, right, can also show people in real time. Oh, New York City, which is so liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're so urban, you know, we're vegan, you know, we're all these things, you know, but we're also racist. We're all it's still an apartheid state, like, you
Yeah.
know,
Just because you vote against Trump don't mean you're not racist.
right. And I think sometimes
Yeah.
people prematurely, just
Mm-hmm.
like with the timeline, green,
Mm-hmm.
right? They pat themselves on the back, like, oh, look at that. Oh yeah, we're done with that. Oh yeah, we don't. No, this is racism here. No, we don't. We don't do voter purges here. You know, we're not election deniers here. And so they take the most flagrant,
Mm-hmm.
problematic elements of racism and say, look, I don't do those. And so, okay, but what about all these other more pernicious, insidious
Mm-hmm.
um, forms of racism that disproportionately impact and benefit certain people and not others? Where are you on that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And even if you're silent on it, what happens when some of those privileges are taken away from you? How do you then show up in
Yeah.
society in New York City? Well, then we
Right.
will see the real New York, and we will see the real New Yorkers. That to me is the real test, right? Like, let's say I have full confidence in you, which I do. I think you're amazing, right? Let's say I have full confidence in you that we roll it out, that we do it, rah rah, right?
Yeah.
There's also, again, and it's not just white issues. There's a whole, you know, there's Asian issues, there's
Mm-hmm.
There's Latino issues. There's Black issues too. It's not like all
Yeah.
Black people are on the same page.
Right. That's true.
So there's all these. This is why I literally designed the logo. Don't mind this. This is why I literally designed the logo this way. There's so many, and sometimes the issues blur into each other. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can have coalitions, right? Sometimes there'll be a coalition of Hasidic Jews and Black people in Crown Heights. Boom.
Hmm.
Sometimes there'll be a coalition between Asian and Black people. Boom.
Yep.
Sometimes, all the different issues, they'll converge and say, you know what? We have more in common, right? Let's join forces to defeat this other larger thing.
Right.
Sometimes that also happens, and I think there's ways in which the Racial Justice Commission can leverage that too, that this is a multiracial coalition of people who are singularly focused on way more haves and way less have-nots, right? Because it's unsustainable what's happening in New York City right now. Like the level
Absolutely.
of drug use, the crime, the what I call blapathy, Black and apathetic, because keeping hope alive is killing you softly. The level of people who are like, they're like zombies. You know what I'm saying? Like they're here, but they're not here.
Yeah.
Because the system has done so much damage to them that they're just like, okay, all
By
right.
and that's by design.
Mm-hmm.
That is by design. That is not like unintentional. That's not like fluky. That is by design, and that was on purpose. Someone says, if you make phones cheap, if you make getting apps like free, one, we could steal your data, and then two, keep you occupied. There's a bread and circus theory, as
Oh,
we learn about. Once upon a time,
oh,
you
oh,
know,
oh,
entertain folks
oh, you
and
getting political now? Okay. Walter Anthony Rodney. Okay, GT Massive. For those of you who don't know, Walter Anthony Rodney hails from Guyana. He's one of the biggest revolutionaries. So that's like a shout out to you. Continue, Harold.
appreciate it. But you know what? But ultimately, what we have to realize is that what New Yorker doesn't want to see another New Yorker live with dignity. No one takes glee from someone living in a homeless shelter or have to choose between medicine and food. And so, my argument is that if you really want to see New Yorkers live with dignity, you have to get behind addressing the inequities that exist, and that's the main driver of why people don't live with dignity. And so, like, we get into these like kind of false fights, like around schools, as far as like, I was having a conversation with someone, and they talking about, well, you on one side of the school debate and Asians on the other side of the school debate.
Mm,
I said, well, actually, no, we're not.
mm,
I said,
mm,
what we both want is our kids to have high quality education. What's happening here, you create these false barriers of like, the only way you get a quality education if you go to Stuyvesant. And why it has to be that way? Why it has to be a specialized high school is the only entry point to like quality education? Like, there's something fundamentally wrong with that. Because if Asian families had choices, if Black families have choices of like
mm.
sending the kids to more quality schools, knowing that they will go to college and be productive, they're not going to worry about whether or not the kids get into Stuyvesant or Tech or whatever. But we put these like these things in place, and then we cannibalize each other over it, and the white man wins.
Oh, that's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt. We're gonna have on it. Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I put is the scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
That power accrues because you're hoarding opportunities and then
Hmm.
delineating who is and who isn't worthy.
Right.
And then that causes this desperation, this panic, and a sub economy of, well, let me pay these tutors, and well, let me
Hmm.
get these books, and but it also is an inferiority complex, because it's like, I'm never enough, I'm never enough, I'm never
Right.
enough. And if they can just say yes to me, if they can just pick me, right?
Hmm.
So all of these issues, unfortunately, are on your shoulders. Okay, Atlas.
Well, I mean, it's a fight that I'm definitely not alone in, and platforms like yours actually help
Hey.
highlight,
Hey.
like what's going on out here,
Mhm.
and for us to actually talk about ways how we can all combat it, and we combat it in different ways. We combat it through conversation, combat it through political action, combat it through legislative action, protests, whatever is necessary, but all of it is important.
Blip
And
point.
yeah, blip point. And it takes a coalition ultimately, because I've been to Flushing a bunch of times during my time as executive director of the commission, and talking to Asian leaders. They're they want the same thing.
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
want they want to grow their businesses, they want to have opportunities, they want to have political power, they want to have their kids receive quality education, and they frankly want to be left alone. you
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
and not be known as the model minority, as they call it, and
Right.
saying that, like, oh, look at them, they do it, no, um that's not what they want. And so, at the end of the day, we actually have a lot more in common than what divides us. And I know that's kind of sound like Pollyannic and flowery, but truth is that we do, and there are forces out there know it and do everything they can to make sure that doesn't exist. And so that's what we're really fighting against. We know that there's a better world that we could live in if we choose to do it. But we get distracted by, like, folks wearing t-shirts, or about what school is better than others. Like, these are distractions.
Hmm. Hmm.
Phones are distractions. Not to say I love my Instagram, I love going on Twitter.
Yep.
I love watching sports. I, I love all those things. I'm not going to front, but I'm also mindful that is um those are distractions, and sometimes they're necessary for me,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
don't want to dwell in, like, how terrible the world can be. you know,
Right.
I just want to see the Nets win once in a while, and my Mets finally win a playoff series.
Not the
Yeah.
Knicks. You're a Nets fan?
Well, I'm both. I know it's hard to be both, but I grew up a
Oh,
Knicks fan, and I'm still
Ewing.
traumatized.
What are
I'm
you
still
talking
I'm still traumatized by the finger roll in '95.
about? Reggie Miller?
Yeah, 8 points in what,
Yeah,
7 seconds, whatever.
I know.
Yeah, I'm still
I
traumatized in those
know.
years.
I know. I know.
Yeah, so it's easier to, like, root for bad guys like the Nets.
Yes, I don't know. It's hard. It's just
It's
hard. It's
hard.
just
It's
hard.
hard. And it's hard because I'm a Mets fan first. That's like baseball is my first love. And
Oh,
so, even despite those racist kids in, Mill Basin, I still love baseball.
shout out
Um,
Mason.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh, said that loud and clear. Land that plane.
I brought it all the way back.
Woo.
Brought it all the way back.
So my question would be, Gina, shout out to Gina. So Gina works at the center. It's some acronym, the Center for Equity and Justice out in Atlanta. So Black Issues is a government contractor for the state of Georgia. Woo, woo.
Dope.
And so
Dope.
the Atlanta Public School District is one of my clients, and if
Oh,
Gina,
Dr. Watson, huh?
hmm?
Dr. Watson's the superintendent.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She used to be in New York. Good
There you
people.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if Gina wants to give me the correct acronym for the Center for Justice, Racial Justice and Equity, Gina can. So I work with the kids, work with the teachers as well. And so one of the things when I am hired to do work is to think about producing PSAs,
Mm.
public service announcements, right? So we grew up under the era of just say no, right? Just drugs, right? Like Smokey the
Mhm.
Bear, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Only you can prevent forest fires. Like they were so effective. This is drugs.
Your brain on drugs.
This is your brain on drugs. Any
Any
questions?
question? Any question?
Like we knew these things. We were like, nope, say no to drugs. Nope. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't want our egg to be fried. Our egg. We didn't want our brain to be fried with the egg. Like it was done. Done. You know what I'm saying? What is against drunk driving? Nope. I'm not drinking that course. We were so clear. We were lockstep. We were like, no, I'm not taking Angel just so I'm jumping off of a building thinking I'm Superman. Like we literally were like, I'm not gonna do that. because the public service announcements were so effective.
They were. They were. Yeah, we don't really have that nowadays.
We
I just
don't
realized
have
that.
that now.
That's
So,
interesting.
so what's up with the
I
racial
wonder
justice?
that's by design too. I'm just
Yo,
saying.
this is where Black institutions can come in. You say pressure, no pressure here in terms of like the rollout of the. I mean, I'm being facetious, but I'm also being
Mhm.
very. It's
Yeah, yeah,
important,
yeah.
very serious. Like that's what I think is also missing, right? Like with COVID-19, right? There were all the public service announcements about like how to put on the mask, right? And then
Hmm.
with the vaccine, oh my goodness, you need to take it,
Yeah,
right? But then no more public service announcements. It's just been replaced by political ads that are negative about this campaign and this politician and this campaign and this politician. But the vacuum has not been filled 2 years after George Floyd with racial justice public service announcements. We all
yeah,
know that the media is extremely powerful, that we're addicted to our phones, we're
yeah,
watching everything all the time, we're consuming constantly, we're
yeah,
streaming, we're watching, we're laughing, we're crying,
yeah.
everything in between. Oh, there goes the sirens.
I hear it.
Okay,
It's New York for you.
there you go. 125 for you,
Hmm.
right? Yet I don't see any public service. For every action, there needs to be an equal and opposite reaction, right? And so the default, unfortunately, in New York City, in America, in the world, is racist, right?
Right.
So where is the counter narrative? Where are the PSAs? Where is the media? Something gripping that gets people excited to say, "Yo, shut it down. We're done with racism." Just like we were done, mothers against drunk. We were
Right.
smoking, drinking, cracking. The public service announcements worked on our generation, Gen
Yeah.
X. Shout out to Gen X, the best generation, right? That's not racist. That's generationalist, I guess. But what say you about that? Hey, Gina, commented. What say you about a rollout that includes like public service announcements and things like that? Media,
Yeah.
media.
I think that's important, and it just kind of hit me that we don't really have that currently, and I will hope, if these measures pass. I mean, by the way, we do have commercials running, to encourage people to go vote right now. So
Boom.
it's on all your major networks, and Jennifer has Jones Austin, our chair, has a PSA on WBLS that's running, and
Good.
WNYE radio, that's the New York City radio station. We got ads all over buses and subways, but yeah, I think your question more speaks to the day after, like how we actually, after the election, assuming these things pass, how we actually continue to communicate with the public. And I agree with you that that is something that we need to continue to do, to uplift the need to look at racial equity, even after the ballot measures are addressed. And so, yeah, I think that's a great idea, and those who can make those decisions should consider that. If I'm in the room, I definitely will push that.
Love it. And so we have Bernita. Oh yeah, I love that. Yes, public service announcements. Let's go. Because I feel like we need a compulsory re-education, right? Because
Yeah.
with racism, it's learning and it's also unlearning, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so I just asked Bernita because she said that she voted yesterday, and I just asked her, "Did you flip the ballot? Did you do the racial justice measures?" And she said yes, right? So just getting the word out, right? Again, amplifying issues and accelerating solutions, right? Like,
Hmm.
just getting that word out, right? To let people know that this is coming up, right? Because early voting has already started, right?
Yes.
And from what I learned at the town hall, that was at town hall,
Hmm.
is that it only takes one more person voting um,
One
one
way or the other.
particular way
Hmm.
in order for the Racial Justice Commission to be a solid, sustainable, in perpetuity thing versus
Hmm.
not, right? So let's land this plane. I'm just putting the website again. This is your call to action, Harold, right? What do you want people to do, right? You want them to flip the ballot, right?
Yes.
You also want them to maybe volunteer, right?
Yes. Mm.
So speak more about some of these
Sure.
opportunities, or ways in which we can get to the finish line.
Yeah. So with 7 days left, as we're recording, we have a couple of things we need you to do. One, actually go out and vote. If you're
Yep.
registered to vote in New York City, go out and vote, flip that ballot, and
Mhm.
make sure you're voting on those ballot measures.
Three
Second,
ballot on
yeah,
the
the three ballot measures. There's a fourth one, from the state around Environmental Bond Act. So make your voice be heard on that as well. So we're question 2, 3, and 4 because the first question is the Bond Act question. So 2, 3, and 4. So make sure you make your voice heard there. Second thing we need you to do is volunteer. And you could do this in many different ways. You can sign up on our website, nyc.gov/racial justice.
I just put
And
the
then it's
website there. Hmm.
awesome. And then we have a sign up where you could take action. You can go out into your neighborhood polling place and hand out some flyers. You can
Hold on.
take
You have to be how many feet away?
100 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hmm.
I sometimes stand 98. I let the police challenge me, but that's me. I'm I'm
You
a
walking
fool
around with a
sometimes.
gun.
There's actually not to sidetrack too far, but like there's a blue diamond thing that actually indicate there's a marking at every polling site to show.
Oh,
Yeah, so they actually the
got
police the
it.
police and the poll workers mark it purposely where particular signs are, and if you're 100 feet away.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
There you
usually
go.
it's like a blue diamond or something on the ground. That'll say, it won't say you're at 100 feet. It'll just say Board of Elections, whatever.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Hold on.
so
Um, so someone's just asking about, yeah, let's just, I thought maybe it would be fine, but like, we're going to get right back to you in terms of like the volunteering, but let's just get back to this 2, 3, 4, because Pam just asked that question. So from what I learned, and you can black me up on this. So because the state of New York has its own ballot measure,
yes,
that when you flip the ballot, even though the racial justice ballot measures are numbered 1, 2, and 3, on the black of the ballot, it actually is two. The racial justice ballot
questions.
initiative
Yeah,
questions are 2, 3, and 4,
yes,
because number 1 is the state.
yes.
Now,
This
there's no reason to make this any more complicated. Okay, if you done survived COVID a few times, okay, you are one of the chosen people. Okay, so you're still here, right? And if you can figure that out, then you can figure out something real simple like the state measure versus all these other measures that have to
right.
do with race in New York City. And I think we're good with that, right? And we're
Yes,
black to volunteering and passing out palm cards, getting
yeah.
out
You
all
could
of
do it in your own neighborhood.
that.
We're not requiring you to go anywhere far. But if you want, if you have the ability, the time, you can go hand out some flyers. If you can't leave your home, for example, you can make some calls. You can text. We have all these resources now that we can engage with fellow New Yorkers that you could participate in. But we do need your help. If you don't want to do any of that formally, just talk to 10 of your friends, family members. That makes a difference. Telling people like, yeah, we have these ballot questions, just go out and vote. So just text folks in your phone, retweet something on NYC Racial Justice NY Twitter account.
Yeah.
If you go on our website, we have a toolkit. You could just take some of that, rip some of that, and then do your own postings. Though all those things are actually impactful. We expect that people are not going to really know about these ballot questions off the rip, and so
Yeah.
it's really up to you to help educate. That's why I am now deputizing all of you listening to go out and actually spread this message, because there's someone who probably never heard me speak, someone who
Yep.
probably never heard about these ballot measures, just living their lives,
Yep.
riding their dirt bikes, or watching,
No shade to dirt
Bridgerton,
bikes.
and no,
No shade to dirt bikes.
right, right. They're just living their life,
They are.
watching Nick games, all good. We all know those people, and we all got to tell them like, hey, when you go vote on Tuesday or whenever they choose to go vote between now and Tuesday,
Flip
to
the
flip
ballot.
that ballot and make their voice be heard on these equity questions, and tell them what it's about. Don't let them like kind of fend for themselves to try to figure out. We try to make the ballot questions pretty straightforward and easy, but actually
It's
explain it. You
Yep.
know, tell folks what it is, and so they can go in, make an informed decision about how to vote. So that's what I'm asking everyone to do. If we all do a little bit, we get a lot done. That's what we say. I've been saying that from day one. We all
Yeah.
do a little bit, we get a lot done.
Right. Every bit counts, right? Like
It does.
it's incremental and then it becomes a crescendo, right? Um, and so for people who, low end, can tweet about it, right? I've put the website several times. And for those of you like that, Philip, there's people from all over the country, all over the world that are tuning in, right? So I'm sure some of y'all have some friends in New York City. Right? You can still reach out to your New York City friends. Those of you who are in New York City, reach out to the New York City friends. Reach out to your friends in other cities that also have New York City friends. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? New York is big, right? And this is. I mean, I'm being like very very honest right now. That this is Blurgent. This is it. No other city has this opportunity that New York City has, right? And so, why waste all this ink? Why go through all of this for now, right?
Right.
So it's just, again, we're not advocating either way. It's just a matter of making sure that we are optimally primed. Shout out to Optimus Prime. We're optimally primed, right? To leverage this opportunity for all that it's worth in the time that we have right now. And then I guess one or two more questions before we close is, so on the low end, you can go on the website, you can go on the Instagram, you can go on their Twitter. They have a digital, they have a digital folder of assets that you can share, right? I'm going to start doing some TikTok videos. As much as I'm apprehensive about that, I'm going to start doing some videos explaining some of those initiatives, and y'all can see that because you're gonna hold me accountable now. And so on the low end, you can do digital, right? You can text some people, you can repost some things. And then for hard body, you know what I'm saying, they want to be out in the streets, you know what I'm saying, they want to get tactile with it, right? Where do they go to pick up some of these palm cards, to pick up some of these pens, so they can actually be at a polling place and actually hand these things out? Like where do they go to
Yeah.
let's say that they're
They're ready. Yeah. So I will suggest this. Email our commission inbox, which is racialjustice@charter.nyc.gov. So that's
Hold on,
racial justice.
charter.nyc.gov.
Yes.
Boom, done.
So it goes to like 4 or 5 people. So that means we don't miss it. So if you email me, I'm pretty responsive, but
Do you tweet?
but a little, because I got to. I've been doing this for a while, so I know how to pace myself.
Right.
This is a stretch time. This is a sprint.
Mhm.
So, but we have my colleagues and we check that on a regular basis, and we'll be able to get back to you on like specific locations around the city. We have strategically placed materials and
Drop
like
one.
palm card. Yep.
Mhm.
We have deployment locations around the city currently, and so you email us if you're interested. We'll tell you where to go based on where you are, and then you can go pick up materials there.
Got it. There goes more sirens. Fun. So you heard it here first. Those of you on the low, who want to do digital, more than welcome to do that. Text people in your phones, call some people, right? Y'all going to brunch, y'all bottomless mimosa-ing. Anywho, you might as well mention this ballot initiative because that really gets the party started. But it could get the party started.
You
And
get crunk off of it.
so you can back that thing up and flip that ballot.
Exactly.
Why not, right? And then if you want to do some more high velocity blurgent action, all right, you can reach out to the racial justice at charter.nyc.gov to physically get some palm cards, some pens. You might even Metro cards; those are gold. And
for real.
and actually be out in these streets and give out, give out this materials. And I have a stack as well, and I've already started, Harold. Okay, I already started
Awesome.
giving them out and having lovely conversations with people and their children and everything else in between. Thank you so much for subscribing, Pam. And it really, to me, it's always like lead with love.
Yeah.
When you strip me of the logos and the jokes and things like that, I just lead with love, right? That's how we're gonna get to the other side, right? Like every Super Bowl, every concert, world peace, World Cup, world peace, and everybody puts up their phones and their lighters. I'm like, well, how do you think this world peace is gonna happen? You see,
Right.
we do this every year. Every year, world
Hmm.
peace. We don't have it. It gets worse. World peace is like, no, it's the day-to-day action. It's not this romantic notion of like the Dr. Martin Luther Kings and the Ida B. Wells of the world. No, it's you, right? And let's say that like it's not that, well, if it was during the civil rights era, I woulda. Well, if it was slavery, I woulda. Yeah, but it's 2022. I woulda. What now? What now?
Hmm. Hmm.
Something as simple as flipping the ballot, right? It's not you getting on a soapbox, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us. Sometimes it's not that viral. It's not that like explosive in your face. Sometimes it's something very simple and very subtle,
Yeah.
right? The most people don't know the Montgomery. I'm like my nasal cavity is just like my allergies are really bad. It's not COVID. Most people don't know that uh, the Montgomery bus boycott was over 400 days.
Yeah.
They just teach us this like, oh yeah, one day they just decided, nah, we're gonna walk. No, that idea was in the head, and then several meetings happened, and then everybody who was like, no, well, my feet this, and I'm not gonna do that. Like, it took work,
Lots of work.
lots of work, and most of these people you'll never know their names.
Those
So
who drove cabs, black cab drivers, they did share rides. It was the original Uber. you know.
hey, right? The dollar van. Shout out to Caribbean
Yeah.
Cruise. That's
Hmm.
how we do, right?
Yep.
But again, my point is that sometimes you're making history and you won't even know it.
Yeah.
That's how
That's
history is
real.
made. It's made moment by moment. And the thing is to be a conscious objector. The thing is to be intentional with your action and your power, and not to think that you don't have any, right? Because I always talk about blackapathy, being black and apathetic, because keeping hope alive is killing you softly. But how can you navigate out of that matrix and say to yourself, you know what? I do have some power. There is something that I can do, right? And then there's more. Maybe you flip the ballot, but then you also tell 10 people to flip the ballot. And then you also challenge those 10 people to tell 10 other people to flip the ballot.
Yeah.
And then your whole life has changed, or your whole day has changed, or you don't know that it's nothing for you, but you don't know how you change that other person's life,
Yeah.
right? But it all comes from you. It all comes from you stepping outside of your comfort zone, you challenging yourself, you holding yourself to a higher standard and to a level of accountability that then that goes into the unknown, hoping for the best,
Right.
right? So this is great. I appreciate this. The Blue audience is loving it. I just shared the racial justice website with two relatives in NYC. Boom.
There we
Okay.
go.
Okay. You get a turkey, Philip, or if you're vegan, you get kale. Um, so I had two more questions. One was uh, Adam, who asked, well, if this whole ban on affirmative action rolls out, like how
Hmm.
is that going to impact you as executive director and the entire Racial Justice Commission?
Good question. It doesn't really affect like me personally, like the outcomes of it. It doesn't really affect what we're pushing for. This conversation around ballot questions and the potential of the impact it has.
Uh-huh.
But what it does do, though, it probably will regress the tone a bit about what it means to actually address equity,
Right. The
because
accountability part.
yeah, and so just be aware, that though it does, though I say it may not have a direct effect on like our ballot questions, and if the ballot questions pass, what it means. But what it will do, it will decisions like that potentially can fuel those who enjoy the privileges as the status quo, or kind of blinded by racism, like poor white people. They think because they're white they're still better, they're getting treated like crap too. That may fuel them to you know act out. We've seen that on January 6th. We see, so these things, they're not in a vacuum. They all like kind of have this connective tissue to it. And so if the courts they're signaling, saying that like it's okay to be racist again, it's okay
Yep.
to
Discriminate.
yeah, discriminate, it's okay to see people as less than. And so that's the part I do worry about, whether or not the merits of affirmative action is warranted. um, that's a different conversation, because I think it's misinterpreted by many, including those who are black, and is also misused
Hmm.
by those in power to make it feel like, oh well, you're only here because of, not
Right.
based on qualifications, not based on talent that we bring to organizations, to a conversation, like your token. And I think that's the worst kind of use of like things like affirmative action, because you really miss the whole point. We come to the table because we have this experience, we have expertise, we have assets to help you be better, not for you to check a box.
Hmm.
And if you want us to just check a box, then it's a waste of everyone's time. So that's what those are things we have to kind of be mindful of,
Yeah.
because we have to actually change this conversation a bit, and just saying, okay, we just want faces. Going back to like Obama, like it was great that he was president, but like probably more impactful if we actually had a reconciliation process,
Yep.
a real reparations process beginning. You know, uh, love the like I said, he's on my wall for my
Yes.
boys to see,
That's your.
but my boys benefit more having uprooting structures that this country exhibited for the last 500 years. You know, so it gives them a chance to become president without the scrutiny or all the hoops that Obama and Kamala Harris and those who may come after will
Hmm.
have to face because of the structures that are in place. And so there's a difference there. I have a different perspective like that. It's like I value the work more than the face. you know.
Okay. Right. Right. Signifying nothing. Right.
Hmm.
Um. Right. Like signs and symbols. Versus like
Yeah.
actual policies and power. Right.
Right.
Since you brought up reparations, I didn't want to put you in the hot seat, but
I
yourself.
went there. Uh-huh.
And I should play it because I have the sound effect. It's time for the blackulator. It's time for the like I actually have it. Like, I'll pull it up. But like, what say you around the notion of reparations and the Racial Justice Commission? I mean, we're just gonna go there. We're just gonna go there. We're gonna go
Sure.
there. If you're
Sure.
typewriter, we're gonna go there.
Yeah, we could go there. I mean, I not have a job next week. That's that's on me. Uh, but no, but we to be like serious for a second. We did put in our roadmap. We don't talk about that, but we did a whole final report. And in the final report, we talked about a lot of the things that we can get on the ballot, because we needed more time, more deep dive, more of a of study, because 1 year couldn't give it real justification, and we didn't want to throw something up like you should have a reparations process
Ooh,
without some real like thought, study, considerations, because if you do it wrong, we ain't gonna get another shot at it. And so we did put in a recommendation that the city should look at a process around reconciliation and reparations.
ooh.
Uh, and to be totally straight with you, is that, how are we actually going to move forward as a society if A, we don't acknowledge harms that's done, B, really address those harms in a way that makes people whole, because that's where inequities begins. It's like, all right, you free now, but we ain't gonna give you anything to
Right.
keep up. We never got our 40 acres and a mule. The reason why it was offered to us, because they kind of they inherently understood,
Yep.
like, okay, yeah, we screwed these people over for
Yep.
several hundred years. Least
Mm-hmm.
we could do is give them some land and a
Yep.
mule to help work the land, and then
Yep.
we could leave them alone. But they're like, no, we actually we don't want them slaves anymore. But
No.
we don't have to give them anything.
No.
Well,
We gave them their last names, and that's it.
yeah, but it, instinctively they were tempted to give us some acres of land and a mule to help work the land, because they actually knew
Yep.
that would be a way to make us whole.
Yep.
And then they're like, no, we're too racist to do that. We ain't gonna do that.
Yep.
So we're still, so from there, we've been running in a deficit. We've been running this race in a deficit. Like, just imagine you running a race and you had to start years
Yes.
behind others.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing. And so people are like, oh, why you can't get your act together? Well, the hell, we we've just been, we just got out of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
People don't think that way, but the truth is,
Yep.
like I said, in this largest scheme of human history, we come a long way in a very short period of time, but
Yep.
we're not made whole.
Nope.
And so there's a responsibility there to those who inflict this oppression on us, of slavery, to make us whole, because there are institutions, there are banks, insurance companies, universities, cities, towns, states that all made money off our our ancestors' backs, and we
Yep.
don't reap any of that. We don't reap any of those benefits of labor that was inflicted. So when you have, I don't know what you fill in the blank of what insurance company existed back in 18 whatever, and it merged, and now it's whatever conglomerate insurance company. They made money on the backs of our people.
Yep.
Harvard University um, made money on the backs of African people,
Yep.
and they have an endowment of billions and billions of dollars. There'd be no reason why a black person need to pay tuition to go to Harvard.
Yep. Yep.
you know, and so, like, that type of conversation we need to start, engaging in a serious way, because that's really, I won't say the key, but it's actually a big puzzle piece to making us whole.
Mm-hmm.
Us living with real dignity. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, a city we strive to be. Part
Mm-hmm.
of us, in my opinion, my personal opinion now, of us striving for, is to actually have a reconciliation process that really makes us whole, and that
Yeah.
will bring real dignity to all of us.
Yes. And hold on. I'm gonna play it. Come on, phone. Where's my phone doing this? Go. Watch. It's time for the calculator. It's time for the calculator. Hold on. It's time for the, yeah, it actually. It's time for the blackulator. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for reparations. And so my one of my National Endowment for the Humanities fellowships was through the Brooklyn Historical Society and Museum of the City of New York. And I learned that Brooklyn was a plantation. There are 83 different streets in Brooklyn named after slaveholding families. I
Mm-hmm.
found this out at 36 years old, along with another 40 teachers from all over the country. And they were like, oh my God, this is good. And they just thought about their lesson plans and their unit plans. And, you know, and I literally was like crying, like, oh my God, like, that's the street that, like, New Lots is a three train, is the last stop on the three train.
Mm-hmm.
The Lots family owned slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt owned slaves. Like, these are places that I would play double dutch.
Yeah.
These are places that I would do hide and go seek. Like, my entire childhood was ripped from under me. And they presented to us, at the Brooklyn Historical Society, they have a whole archive. And I held a bill of sale. I held a bill of sale for a man, 45 years old, 150 pounds, that was bequeathed to the Leffords and the Leffords, the Lots, and the Vanderbilts through the women. Because, sometimes the women, they couldn't own property, but they could
Right.
bequeath an enslaved person. And they were all like, oh, wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was one of the most bizarre episodes of my entire adult life, because the teachers were just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is amazing. I can't wait. This is tell my students. And I was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
there was no empathy in that at all. It was just like, it was just bizarre. And how much of that was performative? The excitement to sit there, yeah, gotcha, got ya. I showed, look how horrible these things were. It's like, yeah, but look how hard, like, there's still racism happening right now, and you're not as eager beaver to showcase the modern racism that you have going on as you are
Right.
to do this who done it, how many hundreds of years ago. It's just so bizarre to me. But these are all the ways in which, again, until we unpack, right, all of these different issues, there's still going to be more issues, because people are going to refuse to believe it because of what they've already been. Bob Marley, half the story has never been told,
Yeah.
right? But now you see the light, right? Stand up for your
For your
rights, right?
rights. Mm-hmm.
Get up, stand up, right? And don't give up the fight. So with that, I know you still need to go black to, you're in Brooklyn, right?
No, I'm in St. Albans, Queens.
You are in Queens. I knew
Yeah,
that.
I grew up in Brooklyn.
Hey,
So that never leaves you, but I settled in St. Albans, Queens.
love it, love it. So I'm gonna do some wraparound questions here really quickly. Who makes the best who makes the best roti skins?
Oh,
Guyana.
that's really. I am biased to Guyana, but I have to
Hey.
say Trinidad
All
is
right.
Trinidad. My wife is family's Trinidadian.
Hey,
Um, when Ali's roti is
Ali's on Fulton. Yes.
yeah, and
It's
Gloria's at one point can keep up, but we lost one of their stores. I mean, the other store's still open on Empire,
This
but
is
yeah,
true. This is true.
yeah, but
Okay.
you know.
Check on that. Let's see. Last question would be, what is the most blurgent issue right now? What do you think is the most blurgent issue um, in New York City right now?
In New York City right now, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, people will say housing. I can't disagree with that, but I actually think it's a little deeper than that. I think inequity overall and the intersection of different inequities, and I actually think it all goes back to racist structures.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we talk about those who are LGBTQ plus, those of color are the ones who suffer marginalization at exponential numbers compared to those who are white. People who disable,
Yes.
those who are black and of color suffer greater discrimination and marginalization than others. And I think that when you have all these intersections of issues, race underpins all of that.
Yes.
And if we don't actually address inequities, racial inequities in particular, we're not able to really address the housing crisis that we face. The opportunity crises that exist, as far as like making sure businesses have opportunity, political power, that is necessary for communities to thrive in. Schools being of high quality, all that, their
Issue.
roots, all those issues are rooted in racism.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so you can pick the issue of healthcare, and I think that's what COVID and I think going back to De Blasio for a second, he had a bit of a wake up call. Like he was always conscious of race. I'm not not to like defend or disparage him, but really a wake up call was to see the disparity of death between white New Yorkers and New Yorkers of color, particularly black ones, because we were dying at much higher rates It was not even close. We literally had death sentences in our communities when COVID was rampant. And then on top of that, you saw a man being lynched on camera in George Floyd. He literally was lynched. It wasn't a noose. It was a
Hmm.
knee.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make a difference. That was a lynching right before our eyes.
Yeah.
And so it shocked the system of this country and the city. And but those things actually didn't go away. That the news has faded. We have made it from COVID. A couple of officers went to jail for killing George Floyd. But what those things, the thing that driven those events, the structures of racism still exists, and we still have to fight that. And so um however we fight that, that's what we need to do as a people. This is one way, these ballot measures, but there are other ways. I'm not going to say this is the way out of it. This is a part of the way. But it's going to take work on all of us to do something.
Yeah, and I think the future is bright because we're at least mentioning this. Um, each one teach one, right? Um, and I'm really, really excited about the promise of the Racial Justice Commission. I'm really excited to continue to amplify, flip the ballots, and work with you in the future. Interview anybody else on your team between now and election day. I just shared my email blast, and in the email blast, it has more information about you. It has your bio in there. It has the Medium article that I wrote. I know that there's one little caveat that you need me to shift in terms of the language. I'll do that as soon as I get off. I had to reapply my press-on nails. Blurted. This is the blurted issue right now, as you can see here. I don't know how many of y'all have seen this Black woman, you know, interviewing a high ranking government official, sans pinky nail. Hopefully, you all can forgive me. That's what it is to be Black in America.
I'm married to a Black woman, so I see the struggle.
You know, we keeping our heads above water, making the way we can. So I will leave you with this, and we're Black. We're Black. We're brown. We know the truth. We know our worth, um, and we seek accountability. Right? Uh, People can talk in circles. People can shoulda, coulda, woulda, and what I woulda, I woulda. What we need to do, what we fail to realize is, or we can continue to run this relay race. So with that, I'm gonna pass this baton to everyone who's watching now and everyone who's gonna watch on the replay, on the rewind, and coming in, and beseech everyone to not drop the baton. So with that, we're Black. Harold, sorry, damn sirens. Harold Miller, Executive Director of the Racial Justice Commission for New York City under the Mayor's Office. Flip the ballot between now and election day, because it's election week, I guess, or election high season at this point. I'm gonna cut and paste the hashtags one more time. So please, everyone, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Look forward to presenting more Black and urgent content, and Black experts such as Harold Miller. So I put the hashtags there: flip the ballot, hashtag racial equity, hashtag vote NYC, hashtag your vote matters, hashtag flip it, hashtag don't miss it, hashtag don't drop the baton, hashtag Trinity's had the best royalty, Trinity's the best.
Oh man, I'm gonna hear from our GT folks, but I can't be lying on air.
I know. You're gonna have to eat crow and bacon shark.
Bacon shark. Well, I love some bacon shark. Shout out to Chris and Sons on Hollis.
Hey, I might have to come out to Queens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My favorite bacon shark place.
I don't even. I figured. I'm quick. I'm quick with it. But yeah. So everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Black Issues Issues. Everybody. Oh, hey, Mike. Yes, a lot of love. A lot of love. Everyone, please hit up Harold. What was it? Charter. What was the
The email?
email?
Yeah, it's
Say it again.
racial justice at
Mm-hmm.
charter.nyc.gov. If you want to just follow me, you can follow me at Harold C. Miller on my handles. That's, Twitter or Instagram, Harold C. Miller.
Yep, and that's in the YouTube description, and it's also in the email. The email blast link has a link to way more information on Harold and this mandate and this mission and this vision that I'm just so excited and honored to have featured you today. So with that, I love you all, Black. Thank you all so much for your questions. Thank you all so much for the shares. Thank you so much for the views. Thank you so much for the love and the likes. Let's keep this going. Again, you could do digital, right? You could text people. You can do a TikTok video. You can share it on all the different platforms, right? Or you could also email, right? And be about to be out in these streets and actually hand out some pop cards, discuss this with some people, be your own public service announcement about the racial justice initiatives that are on the Black of the ballot. Hashtag flip it. I love you all, Black. Harold Miller, Kanene Ayo Holder, Black Issues Issues. My goal is to entertain, engage, inform, and inspire millions of people throughout the world to end racism using humor and what I call the For the Blacks movement. So
Love it.
I love you, Black, everyone. So yeah, hit me up, hit up Harold, hit up these initiatives, hit up your New York friends if you're not in New York. Hit up your New York friends if you're in New York. Hit up your non-New York friends if you're in New York, because they also have New York friends too. Hit them all up. Don't drop the baton. I love you all. Black! We did it, Harold! Woo! All right, enjoy. Get home safely.
Take care.
Okay, you are the best. You're the best guest. I love it. Okay, enjoy.
All right. Thank you.